Why do you think sunscreens are so important?
The very first sign of aging in Indian skin is not wrinkles, it's hyperpigmentation.
How to reapply sunscreen if they have makeup? Applying sunscreen just once in a day is enough to provide you protection.
I wouldn't agree to that. Okay, Dr. Aanchal, what do you think? Can sunscreen cause vitamin D deficiency?
No, sunscreens do not cause vitamin D deficiency. This is another misinformation. What do you think about sunscreen in children? What type of sunscreen do you prefer? Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Aanchal Panth, dermatologist practicing since the last 12 years.
Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Shivangi and I too am a dermatologist.
And today we are here to discuss about sunscreens. There's so much of misinformation about sunscreens. So today we both will bust a lot of myths and give you the correct scientific information regarding sunscreens as a part of skin science. So Dr. Shivangi, why do you think sunscreens are so important?
Well, see, sunscreens protect us, we all know, from the sun rays. But the thing is that there are two rays, UVA and UVB rays. UVB we can still prevent when we are inside, but UVA is omnipresent. It is everywhere. It crosses your car windows, it crosses your home windows. So basically, UVA is the one that we really need to protect ourselves from, and that is why sunscreen becomes really important.
Absolutely. And especially in our skin color, wherein any kind of injury leads to darkening. Like let's say you have an acne that heals with darkening. If you go out in the sun, like the tan tends to last for longer. Any kind of injury leads to darkening. Sometimes even dry skin can lead to darkening. So that's why using a sunscreen becomes very, very important. I feel, the way we look at sunscreen in our skin type should be different than how they look at Caucasian skin. Caucasian, they are mostly looking at anti-aging purpose because the changes of freckling and the changes of fine lines and wrinkles are more prominent in their skin type. In ours, it is more uneven skin tone and dullness. So that also makes us look more aged. So that's why using a sunscreen is very important.
That's what they say. The very first sign of aging in Indian skin is not wrinkles, it's hyperpigmentation. So yeah, sunscreen has to be an integral part of our skincare routine.
So whenever we talk about sunscreen, we always mention two things, the SPF value and PA value. So let's briefly discuss about what is SPF and how it's calculated.
Okay, so SPF basically means sun protection factor. Okay, so now when we see our sunscreen, they usually mention say SPF 30 or SPF 50. So sometimes even SPF 100. So what happens is that try to take it like this. SPF 30 is going to protect you from 97% of the UV rays. SPF 50 is going to protect you from 98%. So it's not like there's a huge difference between SPF 30 and 50, and there's a very marginal difference between 50 and 100. So yeah, SPF 50 is basically protecting you against 98% of the damage that is happening by UVB rays, not UVA rays.
Correct. So SPF is basically a measure of UVB protection.
Yes.
It measures the amount of UV rays required to cause a little bit of erythema on the skin. Okay, so if you're protected means that the erythema will come much later if you use a sunscreen. So now that we've finished discussing about SPF, let's talk about PA value. So SPF is usually calculated in vivo on the patient's back to check for erythema, whereas PA value is calculated in vitro. So on a PMMA dish, you apply the sunscreen and then you use a spectrophotometer and you see how much of the UVA rays passes through. So depending upon how much protection it gives, there are the plus signs to denote it. So that's why whenever you look at a sunscreen, like you said, because protection from UVA is so important, we need to look at SPF as well as PA value.
So when we talk about when to use a sunscreen, I usually advise people to at least have one application on a daily basis in the morning with their morning skincare routine. Now, depending on whether you're going out or you're staying indoors, the reapplication will vary. If you are staying indoors, you can stretch that application for like 4-5 hours. But if you're going outdoors, I highly recommend that you reapply at least every 3 hours.
So yes, I also advise the same thing to my patients. When you are outdoors, you must reapply every 2 to 3 hourly. Also, what happens is, even when you're indoors, you have a lot of sun exposure. Like there's a lot of UVA coming in through the windows. And now, especially people are working in corporate offices, which are made of glass buildings. So there's a lot of UVA coming in. So we don't usually account for that. So making sure to protect your skin against UVA, sunscreen application is important. especially for women. We are out and about, also picking up kids, dropping kids, and doing our regular activities. That also accounts for a lot of sun exposure. So even though we feel that we are mostly indoors, we have to use sunscreen to protect our skin.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about how much sunscreen is adequate. How much should we be using? So in my practice, I usually advise to use 2 finger length of sunscreen for the face and for the neck.
Yeah, that's right. So see, also depends upon the nozzle. Okay, sometimes what happens is these sunscreens which comes in 100-gram pack have a larger nozzle. So then maybe 1.5 finger length is also enough. Otherwise, if it is a slightly thinner nozzle, then you can go up to 3 finger length. So basically, you have to make sure that you form a thin film on the whole face. That is very important. Right now, in a chase for light sunscreens, gel sunscreens, what has happened is we are not making sure that there is a film on the skin. We have to make sure that a film sits on the skin in order to protect our skin properly. So yes, it depends upon the nozzle size, but 2 to 3 finger length is what we usually advise our patients. So make sure that all the areas are properly covered. And also people tend to get confused how to layer sunscreen. So a little bit on that.
Okay, so when it comes to layering the sunscreens, it's really important that sunscreen is the last step of your skincare routine. So of course, you have to start with a cleanser. You apply whatever serum you are applying for whatever targeted concerns your skin has. Now follow that up with your moisturizer, and the very last step after your moisturizer is absorbed should be your sunscreen application.
Absolutely. And if you are somebody who uses makeup, make sure that you apply a layer of sunscreen and then use makeup on top.
Yes.
What do you have to say for people who ask how to reapply sunscreen if they have makeup on?
It's quite tricky, but I feel that I just take my normal sunscreen, just go dab. I don't rub it in, and I think it's fine. And if it becomes little oily, I set it with the powder.
Yeah, that's also how I recommend. Otherwise, what you can do is apply a layer of sunscreen and use a little bit of concealer just on the spots that you want to conceal.
Yes, if
because
it has
even
more.
after you apply the sunscreen, it's not like it's completely removing your makeup. No, it doesn't move your makeup so much. So if you feel there are certain areas that you want to conceal, then apply a little bit of concealer. That way, the application becomes much easier.
So now we move on to UV filters. There is a lot of controversy against the older filters, and now we have a lot of new generation filters as well. So I feel older filters are not as harmful as they are portrayed. Firstly, the amount that we are applying on our skin is not enough for it to be absorbed and cause all the hormonal disruption that people are claiming that it's causing. Most of the studies have been done on rats, not human studies. And I feel unless you're pregnant or breastfeeding, if you want to have like a budget-friendly sunscreen, they will come with these filters and they are pretty okay to use.
I feel the same way. I feel that because of the older sunscreens are so economical, and see, if you're using 2 finger length of sunscreen, you will finish up a tube in about 15 to 20 days. So that is just going to add up on the pressure on the person to be able to afford that sunscreen, right? So I think it should fit the budget. I feel the older filters are also quite effective. If used correctly, they are good. And like you said, it has to be applied in a much larger quantity for a longer period of time on the entire body in order to see that kind of systemic absorption that we are talking about. So I think the older filters were giving a little bit of a bluish hue to the skin sometimes. People felt that it was a little oily, they did not blend well. So that's why the newer filters seem to be better accepted, because also they are giving you broader protection. There are few filters which gives very good UVA plus UVB protection. So that ways newer filters are preferred. But then again, that depends upon the budget and what you can afford. The most important thing is to use the sunscreen regularly. So whatever sunscreen that suits you should be used regularly, which is the most important.
Now coming on to sunscreen formulations, Dr. Aanchal, who do you think should be using a cream sunscreen?
I prefer a cream sunscreen on everybody who has normal or dry skin, even sensitive skin. So cream sunscreens are actually very beneficial for anyone who does not want to use a moisturizer in the morning. That is also one of the reasons, people who don't like to layer too many products. So for those, I prefer a cream sunscreen. What about you?
Again, cream sunscreens, the same for me. It's a very good 2-in-1 product. It moisturizes and provides protection. While when we talk about lotion sunscreens, they're a little more runny. I prefer lotion sunscreens usually on the body so that they cover a larger surface area with less effort. And if you talk about gel sunscreens, these are sunscreens I really like for people who have oily skin, even acne prone skin. The gel doesn't sit very heavy on the skin. So yeah.
Yeah, correct. And also, I tell patients to always keep 2 sunscreens handy. Sometimes you feel your skin is looking a little too oily, or maybe reapplication is easier with a gel-based sunscreen. And then on days when you feel that your skin requires that extra hydration, or you have just come back from a vacation and you feel your skin is dry, sunburnt, or recovering, or you've undergone any kind of treatment, started using new skincare actives, then a cream formulation is better. So I would suggest everyone to keep 2, like a cream and a gel, and use it according to what your skin requires, so you get the best benefit. But yes, like you said, gel-based sunscreens I usually prefer for those with combination and oily skin type, because they tend to really like the formulation, and they tend to like how it doesn't feel very heavy on the skin. So that ways, then they also prefer to use it regularly. Another population in which I like to use gel sunscreen is on men. Men really don't like using sunscreens, and especially when you are prescribing them like a cream or a lotion formulation, because they are not used to using anything on their face, they are not going to be very regular with the application of sunscreen. So for them also, even if they have a slightly drier skin, I do prefer to give them a gel sunscreen, because I know that they are going to like how it performs and how it feels light on the skin.
Coming on to serum sunscreens, these I feel they don't form that thick a layer.
Also, they are in a dispenser wherein they are continuously being exposed to oxidation. So I feel, serum sunscreen, stay away from it. I think it's better to use something that comes out of a tube, wherein you're very sure of how the sunscreen is going to last in the tube, and you don't have to worry about the destabilization of filters. Now, Dr. Shivangi, what do you feel about spray and mist sunscreens?
So spray sunscreens, I like them for the body application, not for the face application that much. Mist sunscreens, I'm pretty okay with them. But again, there is a slight risk of, inhaling the aerosols. So that way I wouldn't recommend this on a daily basis. But once in a while, no issues.
I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of mist sunscreens at all. I don't recommend people use mist sunscreens. And even spray sunscreens, I feel for the body, it's okay. And like you said, there is so much of chance of inhalation of these spray sunscreens that absolutely should not be used on the face. If spray sunscreen is all you have, let's say you're out and about and that's the only sunscreen you have, you must spray it on your palms and then only apply it on the face, never around your face. But yes, spray sunscreens on the body, mist sunscreens, I would say stay away, because I feel that the amount that comes out is just not enough to give you the kind of protection that's written on the packaging. What do you think about powder sunscreens?
Powder sunscreens, again, they are good for touch-ups, but I wouldn't ever rely on powder sunscreens protection. You need to have your sunscreen in place. You can also have maybe makeup that is providing some sun protection, and then you can go in with powder sunscreen for added protection. But yeah, never count on powder sunscreen for full protection.
Exactly. So a powder with sunscreen is better than a powder without it, but it still has the pace of that powder. It cannot replace your cream or a lotion or a gel formulation. So you can just use it a little bit for touch-up. Sometimes what happens also with people who apply sunscreens on a regular basis, or people who feel that they sweat a lot, they feel they look too shiny or too oily within 15 to 20 minutes, even an hour after applying sunscreen. So for them, I say you can use a powder sunscreen to kind of mattify the skin a little bit. So for that, it is helpful. Otherwise, of course, you cannot rely on a powder sunscreen to provide you complete protection.
But when it comes to my favorite, it has to be tinted sunscreens. I absolutely love them for the coverage they give. They instantly give you this glowy, even toned skin. And I personally like using tinted sunscreens by layering them up with my regular chemical, sunscreens.
So how do you like to layer it? Just so that people know how exactly to do it.
Okay. So what I do is I first go in with the adequate amount of my chemical sunscreen. I let it sit. I don't, mix the two sunscreens together. Please don't do that. And then I follow it up with just the tiniest amount of my tinted sunscreen that I know is going to give me that even tone coverage. And that just can completely replace your foundation.
Yeah, absolutely. So even for people who want a little bit of coverage, who don't have, too much of blemishes, let's say, to cover, for them also tinted sunscreen works really well. I suffer from melasma, so I really like using tinted sunscreens because it gives you that added protection against visible light. So yes, tinted sunscreens are a really good way to get the coverage and also get the protection protection. And also nowadays, thanks to so many new products in the market, we have really good quality tinted sunscreens that actually suit our skin type as well. So if you find one, it's a really good investment on a tinted sunscreen.
True.
So Dr. Shivangi, nowadays we have a lot of sunscreens which have additional ingredients like antioxidants. They also have skin lightening agents. Some have exfoliants. What do you think about that?
When it comes to antioxidants, they're pretty good because they kind of, enhance the efficacy of your sunscreen. Suppose if you have vitamin C, vitamin E, they're good. But when it comes to exfoliating agents or even retinols, I think it's really not required in your sunscreen. Stick to a basic sunscreen. Put your exfoliants and retinol in your PM skincare routine. That is when they perform the best.
Yes, you can never compare the ingredients that's present in a sunscreen to something that's there in a serum. The serum definitely performs better, and something you use at night for correction is definitely better. In what population I prefer to use these sunscreens with additional ingredients is again men, because they don't use too many products, and in the morning also they don't want to use anything. So after the cleanser, if you go ahead and use a sunscreen, maybe then yes, using something with additional ingredients does help in giving you that added antioxidant benefit. So yes, that can help. Otherwise, if you're somebody who follows a routine, a proper skin care routine, which consists of a cleanser, a serum, moisturizer, and sunscreen, then using a plain sunscreen is definitely preferred. Yeah, and what do you think about sunscreens in makeup?
I think it's a scam because it really doesn't see. For the makeup to provide you the said sun protection, you have to apply a lot of it. And nobody's roaming around looking that cakey. So I feel they really don't give you that much protection. When it comes to makeup without sunscreen and makeup with sunscreen, choose makeup with sunscreen, but please don't rely on it. You have to apply your sunscreen before that.
Absolutely. You cannot rely on it. The amount applied is just too much that's required. So I would say stick to your regular sunscreen, and then you can use a sunscreen with makeup on top just for that addition. But like you said, why it's a scam, even I feel so, is because it sometimes give a false sense of protection to the person. So if they are on the go, they will just apply makeup with sunscreen and feel it's going to give you the SPF that's written on the bottle, which will not. So that's why look at it as an addition, but never rely on it. So there's a lot of debate about what type of sunscreen to use. And in that, a silicone versus non-silicone sunscreen seems to be a continued kind of an argument. So what do you feel about these silicone and non-silicone sunscreens?
Sometimes I feel bad for silicones for how hated they are. They are literally not as harmful as people think. So silicone basically gives you a very good spreadability in the sunscreen. It makes the base of the sunscreen very consumer friendly, and silicones before makeup, they give you a very good finish. It can act like a primer, So I like silicone sunscreens unless you have a known allergy to silicone or your skin is very prone to getting clogged, then you should avoid silicone sunscreens. But otherwise, I think you can go with.
Yeah, even I feel silicone sunscreens are good, and silicones बेचारे से ingredient है इतना बदनाम कर दिया है in every way, but actually silicones are actually good ingredient to have in your sunscreen, especially if you prefer a matte finish sunscreen. So if you want that kind of a matte finish, you don't want a shine, then silicone gives you that finish with easy spreadability without giving you that shine and that extra oiliness. So yes, silicones are good. You can use it, not a problem. But like you said, if you have faced a little bit of acne in the past with silicones, or you don't like the feel of silicone, then you can avoid it. There are multiple other options available. But do you have to actively try to avoid silicone in sunscreen? No, it's not an ingredient that you need to avoid. But if you don't like it, there are multiple other options also out there.
So Dr. Aanchal, what do you feel about fragrance in sunscreen?
The same way I feel about fragrance and skincare products in general. I feel that, if you have sensitive skin, which gets very irritated easily, rosacea skin, or you have history of not being able to tolerate fragrance in your products, then you can avoid it. Otherwise, a little bit of fragrance here and there is not a problem. Sometimes what happens is because these chemicals can have a little bit of a pungent smell. To just mask that also, skincare companies tend to use a little bit of fragrance. So as long as they are within limit, it should be okay. But yes, if you have sensitive skin, then you want to actively avoid it. What do you think?
Same. I feel a little bit of fragrance can only enhance the experience of using a product. Unless you have an irritation or you have extremely sensitive skin, you can avoid them. Otherwise, I don't think that big a villain as they're portrayed.
Now that we have sunscreens available in India from all over the world, what do you feel about the differences between these sunscreens, like the US sunscreen versus European sunscreens?
When it comes to US filters, US has not approved newer generation filters. They are still running on really old filters. When it comes to European filters, they have come a really long way. They have so many new filters that have, good spreadability. They have way broader protection than the US filters. So yeah, they are way ahead.
Yeah, because US FDA is very strict when it comes to sunscreens. They have very, very strict guidelines, certain tests that have to be done. So, which is good in terms of safety, but also because all the new research that's happening in the field of sunscreens, it'll take a long time for them to be accepted in the US. So, for that reason, US filters do lag a little behind because they are not as updated. And yes, European sunscreens definitely perform better also. They do have very strict kind of safety profile. Same with US, but US seems to have a more strict guidelines. So yes, if you have to choose between the two, I would say European sunscreens are a little more ahead. On that topic, what do you think about Japanese versus Korean sunscreens?
I feel both Japanese and Korean sunscreens are really way ahead. Their filters are amazing. They've come up with so many new formulations that sit so well on the skin. So yeah, they are really ahead when you compare them to the US or the European countries.
That's the thing with Korean products. I feel Korean products in general really focus on the sensorial experience. They want the product to be liked by the people who are using it. So of course, efficacy is important, but also on how the product feels immediately after application. So I feel, yes, Korean and Japanese sunscreens are really good. They are also coming up with many new filters. The formulation feels really good on the skin. The only thing is that, when you choose a Korean sunscreen, make sure that you choose a brand which is trustworthy, which has been there in the market for a long time, because we know of certain brands when they were retested in labs, then the SPF was not as high as it was claimed on the tube. Whereas Japanese sunscreens, I think they have a stricter guideline. So Japanese sunscreens are more reliable as such. So our Korean sunscreens will just go for tried and trusted brands so that you're getting good protection. But yes, the feel of the product is so good, and especially for those who don't like using sunscreens, for those who have sensitive skin and they feel that sunscreen does not feel nice on the skin, or they are having a very difficult time making a habit of using sunscreen on a regular basis. For them, I like to recommend these sunscreens sometimes because it's a good entry level, and once you're used to using it, and then you can go ahead and use other sunscreens. So yes, these countries make good sunscreens.
What do you think about pharmacy versus OTC sunscreens? I feel currently we have so much competition amongst the brands that everyone wants to put their A game forward, and the consumer is really benefiting in the situation because we are getting some really good quality sunscreens at some really affordable prices.
Yes, a few years back, or a decade back, there was a big difference between pharmaceutical grade sunscreens and OTC products because we felt that they were not properly regulated. And the thing with sunscreen is that just the formulation being correct is not enough. Like, it has to be standardized. Every tube should offer the kind of protection that it mentions on the packaging. So there's a lot that goes into producing good sunscreens. But yes, I would suggest that if you are somebody struggling with certain dark spots or melasma, maybe using a pharmacy grade sunscreen might be preferred for you. Otherwise, if you are just using it for regular protection, then I feel a sunscreen, as long as it gives good protection from a trusted brand, is good enough.
Okay, Dr. Aanchal, where do you think Indian sunscreens stand currently?
I feel India has really, upped their game when it comes to sunscreen and skincare in general. Yes, a few years back, I used to feel that Indian sunscreens didn't have that kind of a formulation. It used to leave a thick white cast. It did not have good spreadability. Also, a lot of people used to complain that it used to make their skin appear a little bluish. It used to just not be nice to use. But now I think with newer formulations, with them integrating the new filter in their sunscreens, I feel they are very competitive, well priced, and offer good protection. So now that we've discussed the basics of sunscreens, where people tend to struggle is how to choose a good sunscreen for them. So today we have UV Doux with us. So I'll just read out the label so that we can educate people as to how to choose a sunscreen and how to read a sunscreen label. So this one is UV Doux Blue Light Sunscreen. So first I'll look at the formulation. So it is a gel-based formulation. So that itself is, it gives me an information who it will suit. So somebody with oily skin, combination skin, or somebody who likes a light sunscreen can choose this. Then you look at the SPF. This has SPF 50 and PA 3+. So we know it provides protection against both UVA and UVB. Then you look at the finish of the product, which is a matte finish. So somebody with oily skin, like I said, will prefer this. Then you look for water resistant or sweat resistance. So if you are out and about, if you're somebody who sweats a lot, or you're going to indulge in water sports and you want to make sure that the sunscreen is water resistant. Then there is blue light protection also in the sunscreen. So if you're somebody who's struggling with dark spots, with melasma, then you want something with a blue light protection in order to give you protection against visible light as well. So now I turn and look at the ingredients of the sunscreen. Sunscreen ingredients have to be at the second or third of the ingredient list. So this is on the second. So it has chemical filters as well as titanium dioxide, zinc oxide, and it also has iron oxide. So we know it gives blue light protection as well. So the combination of these filters gives good protection against both UVA and UVB. So it's a broad spectrum sunscreen, plus it's dermatologically tested. So they have tested it in a lab to know that this gives effective protection and gives the protection that's mentioned on the box. It is also free of benzene and it is reef safe. So as the sunscreen protects against UVA, UVB, infrared and blue light, what do you think about blue light protection in sunscreen?
So with the current advancement in technology, we are all the time either on our phones or on laptops. People are working in corporate all the time in front of screens. Now these screens, they emit blue light, which also kind of ages our skin. It causes hyperpigmentation, it causes uneven skin tone. So our sunscreens have also evolved and they have started incorporating filters against these blue light, because it's actually very important for people who have any sort of hyperpigmentation, melasma, because once they have gotten melasma from the sun, it worsens just by the phone screen or the laptop screen. So I feel it's really good to have blue light filters in your sunscreen.
Yes, absolutely. Also, there has been a study where they've looked at the effect of visible light on melasma, and they've seen that the darkening that has been caused due to exposure to visible light, that is darker and tends to stay for longer as compared to exposure to UVA and UVB. So that's why protecting your skin against not just UVA and UVB but also against visible light is important, especially when you're struggling with stubborn dark spots and melasma. So yes, so this is a gel sunscreen which gives blue light protection. Now we can talk about the difference between mineral and chemical sunscreens. When do you prefer to use a mineral sunscreen?
So mineral sunscreens I usually prefer in pregnant females, also in kids. Also if you have very sensitive skin, mineral sunscreens, they tend to give really good results.
And mineral sunscreens are globally available, it's easy to find, and also it is tolerated by everyone. So I do prefer to give mineral sunscreens, like you said, for people with sensitive skin, pregnant women, and in kids. They tend to like the formulation better. And before, I think we used to have very thick mineral sunscreens, which used to be very difficult to spread. But now, because of the presence of silicones and other ingredients, the spreadability is better. And even a mineral sunscreen is easy to use, and people do like to use it regularly. So yes, there are certain conditions in which I prefer to use a mineral sunscreen. So since we're talking about UV-Doux sunscreens, it also has a mineral variant which is also tinted and gives SPF of 50 and PA 3+. So this is also a good choice, like you said, for people who have sensitive skin, for pregnant women, and for kids. You can go for a mineral sunscreen, which is a UV-Doux mineral sunscreen. So see, we've discussed so much about sunscreens, but a lot of people still avoid using sunscreen because of certain concerns, such as they feel that sunscreens can cause allergy. Have you come across people with sunscreen allergy? What is your take on this?
See, allergy is something very, very specific to a person, because anything and everything can cause allergy. So if you are allergic to any ingredient or any filter that is present in the sunscreen, yes, it can cause allergy, but doesn't mean that if one sunscreen has caused allergy, all sunscreens are bad. You need to find the one that suits you, and I would say you still have to stick to a sunscreen.
And also, if you are allergic to a sunscreen or you feel you have an allergy to any of the ingredients, you can go for a mineral sunscreen instead, because that is very well tolerated. Like we said before, even people with sensitive skin can use a mineral sunscreen. So there is a sunscreen for everyone. You just have to use it and find the right one. What do you think about this whole myth that sunscreens cause cancer?
I really don't know where has this come from, because sunscreen, on the contrary, they protect us from cancer. Luckily for us, our skin has a lot of melanin, so we don't as easily develop skin cancer as Caucasians. But still, I have seen so many patients, workers, farm workers who have developed melanomas, and had they been using sunscreens, had they been taking proper sun protection, it wouldn't have happened. So sunscreens don't cause cancer, they rather protect us from that.
Yeah, and UVB rays actually cause burn on the skin, which over time, with cumulative effect, can lead to cancer. So that's why protecting against UVA and UVB is very important to protect your skin against skin cancer. Like you said, our skin type is not very prone to develop cancers, but still, if you are somebody who's out and about in the sun for a long time, using sunscreen is mandatory. And no, it does not cause cancer, actually protects against cancer.
Okay, Dr. Aanchal, what do you think? Can sunscreen cause vitamin D deficiency?
No, sunscreens do not cause vitamin D deficiency. This is another misinformation. The amount of sun exposure you require to produce vitamin D is just 15 to 20 minutes a day, about 3 times in a week. That is enough. So we are not using sunscreen to that extent and reapplying it so much in order to give 100% protection. And even though you're using sunscreen, it's not blocking 100% of the rays. And we're also using it only on the face and neck, not on the whole body. So sunscreen application should be done regularly. You should use it regularly, and no, it does not cause vitamin D deficiency. What do you think about darker skin tones avoiding sunscreen?
So I understand where the school of thought is coming from. They think that they have melanin, which is supposed to protect their skin from the UV damage. But it actually does not work that effectively. Also, there are UVA rays coming that are causing premature signs of aging. So even if you don't burn or you don't get cancer, you're still getting aging, you're still getting, DNA damage to some level. And why do you want to go through all of that when you can apply a sunscreen and just avoid it completely?
Yeah, and also darker skin tone also tends to be a little uneven. You tend to develop darkening around the mouth, sometimes the size of the face. Sometimes your forehead tends to be darker than the rest of the face. Also, I feel using sunscreen on a regular basis does help in reducing this unevenness of the skin tone and makes your skin look more even and reduce the chances of getting dullness. So yes, sunscreen, no matter what your skin color is mandatory and you should use it regularly.
Okay, Dr. Aanchal, what do you think about using sunscreens after checking the UV index?
So this one is tricky. So if you live in a climate which is mostly cloudy or in winter, maybe checking the UV index may help, because if it is very low, then you can avoid using a sunscreen. But I feel, using a sunscreen should be a habit that you make every single day. And even though it is protecting against UVA and UVB, it is also protecting your skin against pollution particles. So if your sunscreen has zinc oxide and titanium dioxide, it actually forms a layer on the skin that protects your skin against pollution particles as well and reduces the oxidative damage on the skin. So I feel that if you make it as a habit, you are more likely to stick to it. If you're checking something and using it accordingly, you're more likely to skip it. So I feel sunscreen should be made a habit and you should use it regularly in order to reap full benefits. What do you think about sunscreen in children? What type of sunscreen do you prefer?
When it comes to children, I advise using sunscreens from 6 months of age. Whatever is the exposed part of the body, it's better to just cover it with sunscreen. When it comes to formulations, I feel mineral sunscreens work great for children. With the current advances in mineral sunscreen formulations, they are quite spreadable. They are, very easy to apply, and they work best for children.
Yeah, I feel in kids, it's better to go for physical protection, make them wear full sleeve clothing as much as possible, cover them up as much as possible. And then, yes, the exposed parts, you can apply sunscreen. We don't need to use it as regularly, like you don't need to use sunscreen daily in kids, but yes, use it whenever they're outdoors and engaging in activities where they can get burnt. Definitely you should be using sunscreen. Okay, now let's bust some sunscreen myths. The first sunscreen myth is that you don't need sunscreen when you're indoors.
So like we have already discussed, UVA is present everywhere. It is crossing your car windows. It's coming through your, home windows. And that is why, and UVA is basically the one that is giving you visible signs of aging. So yes, sunscreen even indoors is absolutely essential. So the next myth is higher SPF means you don't need to reapply.
Yeah, so this is also wrong because our skin produces oil and sweat, which tends to break the sunscreen particles down. So you must reapply sunscreen. Nowadays, there's good sunscreens out there in the market which gives long protection. So you can reapply every 4 to 6 hours. But I would still suggest that if you're engaging in activities that is causing sweating, then you have to reapply every 2 to 3 hours. Otherwise, if you have sunscreens which provide longer protection, then reapplying every 4 to 6 hours is also okay. Now, another myth is that sunscreen blocks vitamin D completely.
So that's not true. Firstly, no one's applying sunscreen from head to toe for you to completely block all the sun rays. No sunscreen is providing 100% protection, and you really don't need to be out in the sun the whole day to have adequate vitamin D. It requires 15 minutes early morning sun if you take. It's more than enough for you to have adequate vitamin D production. So no, sunscreen does not cause vitamin D deficiency. Okay, so the next myth is that natural oils like coconut oil is a very good sunscreen.
This is an absolute myth. This started because people used to apply oils in order to get tan. So Caucasians love to get a tan, and to prevent their skin from drying out too much, they used to apply a good layer of oil on their skin and then sit under the sun. Absolutely does not provide any kind of sun protection. It's just a moisturizing ingredient, and you still see all the harmful effects of UV rays when you use these natural oils. So no, they are not good sunscreens at all. They are in fact not sunscreen at all.
I feel they're just marinating themselves under the sun by using these.
Another myth is that sunscreens cause acne and it should be avoided.
See, so not all sunscreens cause acne. However, I will agree, if you're using the wrong formulations, if you're using comedogenic formulations, you can get acne. So if you have acne-prone skin, always look out for sunscreens that are non-comedogenic so that they sit better on your skin. Okay, so the next myth is waterproof sunscreens last all day.
So like I said before, no sunscreen can last on your skin all day because your skin is making sweat and oils. It tends to displace whatever product has been applied on the top. So even though they tend to last longer, you have to reapply it after 4 to 6 hours. Otherwise, it's not going to give you adequate protection. Another myth related to the previous one is that applying sunscreen just once in a day is enough to provide you protection.
I wouldn't agree to that. See, if you're staying indoors and if you're really far away from like windows, then maybe yes, applying sunscreen once a day is okay. But even if you are going outdoors or even if you're sitting closer to windows, when you see a lot of, sunlight coming inside the house, you have to reapply your sunscreen. The next myth is spray sunscreens cover evenly even without rubbing them in.
No, spray sunscreens have to be rubbed in. So the proper way to use spray sunscreen is over a certain area, over every area, you have to spray 4 times and then spread. Okay, only if you rub will you get a uniform application, and it should give a glistening feel to the skin. Like it should look like there is a layer on the skin. That's how you properly apply a spray sunscreen. You cannot just spray and let it be. You have to rub it so that there are no skip areas. Otherwise, what happens is the area which gets the spray from the center of the nozzle will have a larger amount of sunscreen and the periphery will have less sunscreen. So you have to rub it to evenly distribute. Another myth is that kids don't need sunscreen at all. What do you think?
No, that's incorrect. They really require sun protection because they are as prone to, burning under the sun as we are. So firstly, yes, you should rely on physical protection a lot because even sunscreens are not providing 100% protection. But I would say combine both. Give them physical protection, give them sunscreen protection, keep your kids protected.
Yeah, and also a lot of the skin concerns that we see over time are actually cumulative. It is not just because of exposure in 1 or 2 days or 1 or 2 years. It's what has accumulated over years. So forming a habit of protecting against the sun is important if you don't want to run into trouble once you are older. You are practicing all the good skin practices at that age. That way you'll have younger looking skin, better skin for longer.
Also, if you get sunburned in the childhood, it increases your chances of developing skin cancer later in life. These kids can develop melanoma. So it's really important to just, keep your skin protected.
But I do agree that kids don't need as much sunscreen as adults. Yes, I would not suggest you to reapply sunscreen every 2 hourly, 3 hourly in a child, because I would like to rely on physical measures of protection more. So yes, they do not need as much as adults, but they do need protection, especially when they are engaging in outdoor activities for a long time. Also in activities where water and sun both are involved, that leads to worse tanning and burn on the skin. So, one population that I really struggle with when I prescribe sunscreens is acne prone skin. People with oily skin really don't like to use sunscreen. So, we have this UV Doux sunscreen, which is a silicone gel sunscreen, which provides broad spectrum protection against UVA and UVB. It is also oil free, it has matte finish, it is water resistant and non comedogenic. So, as we had mentioned before, whenever we write sunscreen for oily skin, we always look for non comedogenic. So, that is also one of the things. So, this has mostly chemical filters along with titanium dioxide. So, overall, a good formulation and a good sunscreen to be used in acne skin. How do you prescribe sunscreens for acne prone skin and oily skin?
So when it comes to oily acne-prone skin, for acne-prone skin, it's really important to check that your sunscreen is non-comedogenic so that it does not clog your pores and flare up your acne. Oily skin, I feel gel-based formulations, they work really well. Matte finish is something that oily skin people should, go towards. So yeah, these are the things that I look for in the sunscreen.
Yes. Yeah, that works. And also this UV Doux silicone gel sunscreen is long lasting. It gives long lasting protection. So, for people with oily skin, if they don't like to continuously keep reapplying every 2 hourly, then this gives a longer lasting protection. Also, the good thing about this sunscreen is that it does not feel too sticky or heavy on the skin. So you can apply the adequate amount without it feeling too greasy. So I prefer to use this in people with oily skin, acne prone skin, and in men, like I said before, who don't use too many skincare products and prefer a light product.
As people of color, I feel tanning is very, very frequent in our skin tone. You have to just step out and you will be visibly tanned. So what do you think about sunscreens and their role in preventing tanning?
Very, very important. I feel, you get these detan masks, detan creams, which promise you detanning in 10 minutes, 20 minutes. None of them work. They only have bleach, and that bleaches the hair. Actual detan is sunscreen. So when you protect your skin against UV rays, over time, there will be epidermal cell turnover and all the dark skin is going to be shed and the newer, lighter colored skin is going to be exposed. So as much as you protect your skin from the sun, the better it is. तो ऐसे कुछ डीटैन तो होता नहीं है सनस्क्रीन से, लेकिन सनस्क्रीन रेगुलरली यूज़ करोगे तो डेफिनेटली आपकी टैनिंग ओवर टाइम लाइट होगी, एंड दैट इज़ द ओनली वे टू प्रोटेक्ट योर स्किन फ्रॉम टैनिंग.
I feel the same.
Yeah, so since we are on UV Doux, they also have a Detan Aqua Sunscreen Lotion, which is enriched with antioxidants. So this helps in not only protecting the skin, but also gives that extra antioxidant benefit in order to reduce tanning faster. So this is something that people can use. So what do you think about cheap versus expensive sunscreens? There's a large range of sunscreens available in different price points. What do you think is the difference?
Okay, so when it comes to sunscreen pricing, I personally do not recommend using sunscreens that are really out of your budget. Like a sunscreen for 5,000-6,000, you'll not be able to apply and reapply it as frequently. So it's really important that you go for a sunscreen that fits in your budget. Now that being said, do not go for really, really cheap sunscreens also, because try to understand, for a brand to come up with a sunscreen, it's going to require money from their end as well. And for them to make profit, there has to be a margin of profit over here. So suppose if you're buying a sunscreen for just 200 rupees, you don't know how good quality, how stabilized the filters are, how much research has gone behind it, So it's really important to find a sweet spot like a 500, 600, 700 rupees sunscreen wherein the brand is getting their share of profit and you're getting your share of good quality products.
Yes, absolutely. So I also agree that, when a product is so inexpensive, probably that much of research has not been done. Probably the lab testing has not been done. Also, getting these certifications cost money. So you want to make sure that the sunscreen is properly certified, tested for safety and efficacy in order to provide the protection that's written on the packaging. So yes, exorbitantly priced sunscreens are not preferred, but make sure that whenever you choose a brand, that it is a trusted brand, comes from a trusted source, and it is properly tested, so that you can trust that it's going to provide the kind of protection that you want. Because we are using sunscreens not as a cosmetic product, but as also almost a medicine. We are expecting it to protect the skin against many other concerns. We are expecting it to kind of shield your skin from the damaging UV rays. So we want to make sure that it has been tested and it is up to the quality that we want from a sunscreen. So definitely going for a good brand, a well-tested brand that does all the lab testing, that invests in safety and efficacy is important whenever you're choosing a sunscreen. Sometimes what happens is that the SPF that is written on the packaging is not what the product delivers. So as we have seen with certain Korean brands in the past, when the European labs tested those products, they found that SPF 50 was actually SPF 10 or 15. So that's why going for properly tested brands which have done their due diligence in the whole research arena as well as testing the products is important, so that we can trust the brand to provide the safety and protection that's mentioned. So an SPF 50, if it's written on the packaging, it should provide SPF 50. So yes, a well-priced product from a trusted brand is what we prefer. Now we'll move on to the next segment, which is de-influencing skin trends. We have given you all this information about sunscreen, but what are few things that are just not helping you and we want to de-influence? So let's start. I'm going to ask Dr. Shivangi certain trends and she's going to give her opinion on them. So the first is toner is a must-have step in your skincare routine.
See, I wouldn't say it's a must-have, but I also don't want to talk bad about toners because I use a lot of toners in my routine. Now, toners these days have evolved. You can have exfoliating toners, you can have hydrating toners. So depending on whatever you need, your skin needs, you can use a toner. But I wouldn't say it's a must-have, like your skincare routine is incomplete without it. No.
Okay. Next is, what do you think about everyday sheet masks?
They're absolutely unnecessary. First of all, it's more of an indulgence than actually skincare. And once in a while, they're okay. But if you're using them on a daily basis, you're producing so much waste for the planet as well, you know?
Next is microneedling rollers at home. What do you think about microneedling at home?
I will completely advise against that because see, when you're using microneedling in clinic, there's a lot of sterilization that goes on. But when you're using them at home, sometimes people don't even wash them. They use the microneedle, put it back, and the next day they come and reuse it. Very high chances of infections that can happen because of this. So please try to stay away from microneedling at home.
What do you think about charcoal pull-out mask?
See, charcoal pull-out mask, I think, are pulling out the skin barrier along with all the gunk. Our skin is not as strong for you to just pull things out. So I think we require more gentle care when it comes to skincare and not such harsh rubbing and pulling.
What do you think about IV glutathione or glutathione supplements?
When it comes to IV glutathione, I think it still works, but it will only show you results as long as you are taking them. But when it comes to oral glutathione, the results are very variable. We really cannot assess as to how much of benefit will you really get. So yeah, it's a gray zone. So Dr. Aanchal, what do you think about 10-step skincare routine?
Absolutely unnecessary, waste of time. Stick to just your basics of cleanser, serum and sunscreen in the morning and cleanser, serum and moisturizer at night. That's all you need.
Okay, that's right. So what do you think about SPF 100 in a sunscreen? Is that really important?
I think more than SPF, we need to reapply sunscreen regularly. That is more important, and applying the adequate quantity is more important. Like we discussed before, the difference in protection between SPF 50 and 100 is not that much different. So I feel rather than running that SPF rat race, it's better to know what sunscreen suits you, how to apply and how to use it correctly. That will serve you in the long run.
Okay. What do you think about collagen creams?
Absolute waste of money. Collagen molecules are too large to penetrate the skin. All they do is hydrate and moisturize the skin. So if you're looking at collagen creams as moisturizers, great, go for it. But if you're expecting it to generate collagen in your skin, it's not going to.
Your take on DIY home remedies?
So I'm known on the internet as somebody who's against home remedies. I feel, if you look at home remedy as something that you use for relaxation, to feel better, some me time, great. But if you're looking at it to give you actual tangible results, it's not going to. So I look at home remedies as something you do in your free time, but not something that you can count on to improve your skin concern.
All right. What about skin slugging?
So skin slugging is a process in which you do your skincare and then you seal it with a petroleum jelly as the last step. I feel it can be beneficial for those who have very, very dry skin. Let's say if you've undergone a procedure in a clinic or you've undergone a chemical peel, then you might want to use a thick layer of a moisturizer to reduce the transepidermal water loss and so that your skin can recover overnight. But for most people with even normal combination oily skin, it is just disaster. It can make things worse. So I would say stay away if you have any of those skin types other than very dry skin.
Okay. And finally, what do you think about 24 karat gold masks?
I think gold is best when worn as jewelry or kept as investment. You don't need them in a mask.
Okay.
Now, after that fun de-influencing, we have a quick rapid fire round where I'm going to ask Dr. Shivangi some quick questions, expecting quick answers. Let's get started. So, the funniest and most bizarre sunscreen myth that you've been asked?
I've actually seen this in my comment section where I was telling people to apply sunscreen regularly, and someone commented to just apply coconut oil and just stay with that. So I think that was really funny because I felt that instead of protecting yourself, you are marinating yourself to get a better tan.
Yeah, no. Absolutely don't do it. Next is one sunscreen ingredient you'd swipe left on.
I think avobenzone, because that is a comparatively unstable filter. Most of the sunscreens these days stabilize it with other filters, but if it is not stabilized, it cannot provide you the desired protection. So swipe left on that.
Correct. So which one is worse? Forgetting to put on sunscreen or sleeping with makeup on?
I would say sleeping with makeup on, because forgetting to apply your sunscreen will give you maybe a tan for a day, but sleeping with makeup will 100% break me out.
Yeah, I would agree. So the next one is, would you rather live without sunscreen for a year or without your phone for a year?
I will cover myself from head to toe and I'll live with my phone.
I think I would do the same.
Okay, so now your turn for a quick rapid fire. One common mistake people make with sunscreen.
I think the most common mistake is that people are not choosing the right sunscreen for their skin type. They give up on sunscreen too easily. They try these older sunscreens which feel too thick on the skin and the one that is not suitable for their skin type and skin concern, and then they just give it up. So I would say invest that time in finding the right sunscreen. You'll love using it.
Okay, so what do you think? Is sunscreen safe for kids under 5 years of age?
Yes, sunscreens are safe, but use a mineral sunscreen. Like I said before, I prefer to depend on physical measures of protection for kids rather than just slamming on a lot of sunscreen. But yes, sunscreens are safe. Use a mineral sunscreen for younger kids and they'll do just fine.
Okay, so one sunscreen myth you wish would die.
That sunscreens cause cancer. Please, this should go.
Makes sense. All right. Okay, and lastly, if you could give just one golden rule about sunscreens for life, what would it be?
I would say find the right sunscreen and stick to it. Use it on a daily basis and your skin is going to thank you 10 years down the line. One thing about sunscreen is that people expect quick results and they expect to see changes on their skin, but that's not how sunscreens work. Sunscreen is something that your skin is going to thank you in your 40s and 50s. So yes, just use it regularly. That'll be my golden rule.
That's such a nice golden rule.
Now we've come to the end of the podcast. Thank you so much for watching till the end. We tried to make this podcast super informative, packed it with information on sunscreen. Still, if you feel that we've missed out on anything, you can let us know in the comments below. We'll try our best to address them all. I hope you found this podcast useful. Do follow us on both our Instagram handles and on our YouTube channel. See you soon. Bye.